Welcome to the Generational Gap. I'm Robert, your resident Gen Xer, and way over there we've got John, our resident millennial. And
That's
sitting in
me.
with us tonight, right in the middle, John, can I get a finger? Right in the middle of us, we've got Stephen Ignoramus in the house joining us tonight.
Right.
How are you doing, Stephen?
Fantastic. How you guys doing?
Well, we're doing all right.
Got that radio voice, that smooth jazz
Yeah,
voice.
that's smooth. That's smooth shit.
I gotta work on my smooth jazz voice. I gotta get yeah. Maybe I can get some of that. You know who had the best voice for radio? Go. Who? Who do you think?
Alan Allman.
Ooh.
Never heard of him? John?
He's a midget.
Shut up.
For real?
Yeah, he had a deep voice and he's a midget.
That is awesome.
Like Peter Dinklage?
I drink
Yeah,
and
I
I know
guess.
things.
Yeah. I've actually got that shirt.
You know who Peter Dinklage is, right?
yeah.
Because he's
From
got
Game
that
of
same
Thrones and such.
he's got that same kind of voice. He's got a very deep voice. And I'm like, where's that coming from? Like your whole torso is lungs.
His voice, yeah.
John, best radio voice that you could think of.
First one that comes to mind is Howard Stern.
There it is, right there, folks. Howard
Yes.
Stern. Since the death of Wolfman Jack, Howard Stern is the best voice on radio, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
Nobody knows who Wolfman Jack was, right?
No,
No.
I don't.
Wow.
I think you're aging yourself here.
Whatever. Look it up sometime. Otherwise, kiss my old gray ass.
Some Gen X shit right there.
Yeah, right?
No, that's actually boomer shit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then doesn't it kiss your sagging ass then?
Tinchy in the house. Calling for Rush Limbaugh is the best. Shut up.
Rush Limbaugh has a decent voice, but I don't think it holds a candle to Howard Stern.
The only problem with Rush Limbaugh's voice is Rush Limbaugh.
Well, no, we're not talking about what they're saying. We're talking about...
You know what? If I even hearing him, I cringe. Like hearing his voice makes me cringe. I'm like, oh, here goes this fucker again. Because he's never really had too much to say that I could even stomach listening to.
I haven't actually listened to a lot of Rush Limbaugh.
Me neither, yeah.
I used
I
to listen
haven't,
to him in the car with my dad on the way to school when I was in elementary school. That's about the extent of my Rush knowledge. And the fact that he went deaf. That's about all I know about him.
Huh.
Back when Rush was
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, this would have been like the mid to late 90s.
Right? When there wasn't a lot of other voices out there that could shut him down. You know, back in the young days of talk radio.
Well, I happen to know our good friend Jay Edgar is a big fan of Rush Limbaugh.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, I always knew there was something wrong with him. So, so we've got a show lined up tonight, I think. We've got a few things that we're going to talk about. I think we've got a little Kim Jong Trump to talk about, right? I think this story that hit today was a little bit interesting. Then we're gonna delve a little bit into old school feminism, or actually, I don't even. We'll call it patriarchy, misogyny, to a certain extent. But I thought it was interesting stuff. And then we're gonna talk about everybody's favorite subject, guns. We're gonna talk some about guns because AOC came out today with a 4-point plan that is just gonna solve our gun issues.
Yep. Solve everything.
Well, you never solve everything. But if you like what we're doing tonight, please hit the like button, or as you know, God will kill a puppy. And,
It's true.
It could
Can we
be
get a
yours.
fact check on that, Stephen Ignoramus?
No, it's true. I already checked it. Yeah.
I could say sure.
What age puppy? What are we qualifying as a puppy? How old is a dog when it stops being a puppy?
That's a good point. Not sure.
When it grows into its paws, you know the bit. When a puppy's
Oh, yeah, they
really
get-
small, like the big paws. Yeah.
You know what my favorite puppy is? Is a basset hound. They're
Yeah.
fucking hilarious.
They flop a lot,
Their
right?
ears are the same size always. So
Yeah.
like they trip on their ears and
You look super high all the time.
yeah.
Like going
Great.
up, sir. Can I have some weed, sir?
Let's talk. We got Jake from Freedom Scoop in the
Jake.
house. He says we should talk about that guy who keeps peeking over Steven's head.
Oh yeah.
And let's see, is that
Should talk about that guy.
Is that hold
Bach.
on. It is Bach, isn't it? Yeah. I know why that's there.
He's scratching a turntable. He says my original work is for the fans.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And Tinchy's pointing out some breaking news. The Mueller.
Yeah.
We're actually.
Yeah.
I figured we'd take about 5 minutes and talk about that before we get into topics, because I think we can address that in our little our opening bullshit here. Because surprisingly enough, in my opinion, I think that about 5 minutes is all this report being put out is going to gather in the media. Because of the simple fact that no further indictments are recommended. Mm-hmm. All done. There's nothing left to talk about, really, is there? Because that's really all we were waiting for, right?
We just have to find the next thing to call Trump a Nazi about, or whatever we want to call him this week.
What do you think?
To find something else to impeach him on.
What do you think, Ignoramus? Do you think that that there's anything left to talk about if the report comes out and it calls for no indictments?
Well, people are going to talk about shit. I mean, a lot of the last couple of years has been people seeing what they want to see. So people are going to. There's been a ton of spin. I'm not sure if there's no. That's been the thing. If there was going to be new indictments, then there's new stuff. I think the thing's kind of not a hoax, but just kind of been overblown the whole time. And what I've been saying is that now Brexit has just won for the biggest case of political blue balls in the last couple of years. And
I saw that.
Makes it official.
Right.
That's funny.
It's official.
It really has been.
Yeah. See, now Tinchy makes a good point. He says he thinks the question is, has it been worth it? We've already hit a lot of people as a result of the investigation. Now, I will disagree to a certain extent there. We uncovered a lot of corruption from this. Corruption was and I think that is a key thing to take away from this. Not only on our part, but the corruption of particularly Russia being involved in our election. I think that exposing that was worth some of the cost. Maybe not all of the cost, but exposing what's actually going on, waking people up to the realization that not only are other countries doing this, but we also came to the conclusion it is now apparent that we have done this as well with other countries.
Oh, yeah.
But
we've toppled regimes openly.
Right. But the common citizen, most of the common citizens out there aren't truly aware of the depth of corruption that there is. And I think that this exposes a lot of it for anybody who's willing to listen. Right? Yeah. And I'm glad that we did get indictments out of it. Foreign indictments and local national indictments. I think those are important overall. Now, is it? I did tell John off mic. I do think that there's a slim possibility that this could be carried out to 10 minutes in the media if Democrats try and find something impeachment worthy amongst all this report.
But do they even need to find anything to try? That's the thing, isn't it? Kind of at the House's discretion.
Yeah, they just need to
feel
vote.
Like he farted and let's go with it.
Right.
It smelled really bad.
But Republicans wouldn't move on something like that unless there was a smoking gun in that report that really said, "Let's do this." Right.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be behind it, so it's just gonna. I honestly believe that this Mueller investigation, outside of some of the good it did, is going to end like that bottle rocket that you light and you sit there for 5 minutes and don't go near it because it fizzled out and you're not sure.
Yeah.
It may still have a little fire there and it may go off right in my face if I reach out to move it, but it just fizzled out. It was a dud, right?
Yeah.
Because what they wanted to get out of it, they're not going to get out of it.
And they even got all their extensions and everything for it, It's just.
And
pointless.
I think that Tinchy's right. I think Trump should come out and applaud this from his standpoint on corruption. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I've made that joke before about him saying he wanted to drain the swamp, and he's sort of done that, finding a lot of corruption.
Now he's gonna now. My guess is he'll take credit for the Mueller investigation, no matter how much he called it a witch hunt, this, that, and the other thing. But when people say, well, some good came out of this, then he'll take credit for it.
Yeah.
Is my guess. That's kind of his MO, right?
No, yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely within the realm of possibility for sure. I think that's something you do.
I released the report. It was me. It's the best.
Right? You'll see it all over Twitter. But I read an
Yeah.
interesting article a couple of days ago that was talking about how he has been so overblown on Twitter since he took office that he has actually diffused his own power with Twitter. Like initially, when he would tweet things, companies, the stock market would fluctuate in response to tweets and things he was saying. Politicians would start scrambling when he would say these. Now it's like, Trump did another tweet.
Trump broke Twitter.
Right. He ruined his vehicle. He broke his own vehicle.
Trump and Joe Rogan broke Twitter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Did you see that there was actually a Slate article? We don't have it pulled up or anything, but there's a Slate article, like talking about how shitty Joe Rogan is, and it's like that dude of all people, like one of the nicest guys on the planet, one of the most successful people that I've seen, in a while. Like he's famous for so many things.
Well,
and like you're gonna say,
the only negative, and I'll air quote the word negative in this. The only negative I would have about Joe Rogan is something that I'm fallible with, is being outspoken enough that you are kind of a dick or an asshole because people don't want to hear the truth, and they certainly don't want to deliver it in any sort of patronizing way. Or to feel like an idiot.
Interesting.
With the truth, but that's his only. That's where that comes from, I think.
He's just blunt. Yeah, yes. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Extremely blunt.
Yeah. He doesn't give a fuck. He's like, and that's I'm kind of the same way. He and I are probably around the same age. It's like you get to a certain age and you're like, I don't give a fuck.
Fucks.
Here's the truth, right? My fuck budget is tight. I don't just give them out to anybody. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you how it is. And when the truth hurts, go get your snowflake Band-Aid and ask your mommy to kiss the boo-boo and stay the fuck out of the grown-up conversation, right?
Right.
That's his approach. That's how I see him. And sometimes the way he delivers it, he's a real fucking dick.
He can be, yeah.
To those who aren't privy to understanding where he's coming from, and that's what it is. It's mostly ignorance that people say these things about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's done something like 1,400 episodes. I think I've listened to 850 of them. I used to be obsessed with Joe Rogan. And I found in the last year or so that it's kind of the exact opposite, where he kind of agrees with his guests too much, and he kind of changes his opinion from episode to episode. And that I agree with that cartoon about Dave Rubin. I found that kind of has become Joe in at least the last year.
Do you think that has anything to do with I guess in an overall sense, like deep platforming and things like this, to where he's actually trying to become more less combative, a little more PC, as it were, in his show?
I don't know.
I've seen him, disagree vehemently, especially when you bring up something negative about marijuana. He gets very defensive about that. But no, I mean, so if you look at the Steven Crowder episode, the first time Crowder was on, I mean, he got very combative in that one. Yeah. I don't know how long ago that was, but
I think 2.5 years ago. It was a pretty long time ago.
Yeah, but with Joe Rogan, though, I think he's more trying to listen more than he's trying to give his opinion.
I saw a satire article that said local stoner can quit weed anytime Joe Rogan wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've watched his stand-up, and I like that angry Joe Rogan that he pulls out in his stand-up, and I think
I saw him live. Yeah,
there should be.
Did you really? That's awesome.
Yeah, he came to DC, and I saw him about a year ago. It was pretty good.
That's cool as hell. Yeah.
Is it possible that more subdued thing is more like he's trying to make he's having a conversation, and it's awkward for him because he does want to be combative?
Yeah.
Because I think it's in his nature to be combative. He just, he seems like a good debater because he actually does research things he talks about. He understands what he's talking about. So, he's almost geared towards combativeness in that regard.
Yeah, what's up, Dante?
Hey,
Dante's in
Dante,
the
how you doing
chat.
tonight? All right, so while we're talking about Trump, let's talk about what came out today. There's an article out that hit just today, and it says, and this encompasses things that happened yesterday as well as today. And basically, Trump has said, in regard to sanctions that were supposed to be put in place, and we're talking about sanctions that stronger sanctions on North Korea because China has been basically disregarding sanctions, like some of the sanctions, making it accessible for North Korea to get access to things. For instance, petroleum, oil. They've had ships out in the ocean that they've allowed North Korea to come to and get oil that is, part of the sanctions, like, how they should be getting it, how much they should be getting it. But China has overlooked these sanctions or ignored them to a certain extent and still working behind the scenes deals with North Korea to get them things that they need. Well, these sanctions were supposed to crack down harder, become a little harder on North Korea, and that the U.S. Treasury, it was announced today by the U.S. Treasury, and this is Donald Trump's tweet. It was announced today by the U.S. Treasury, which it was actually yesterday, that additional large-scale sanctions would be added to those already existing sanctions on North Korea. This is what the president tweeted today, though the Treasury announcement he appeared to reference took place yesterday and did not involve large-scale sanctions. He said, I have today ordered the withdrawal of those additional sanctions. So really what it was about was putting increasing the pressure on these sanctions to try and prevent China from ignoring them. And his reason behind it, according to Sarah Huckabee Sanders in press conference, President Trump likes Chairman Kim, and he doesn't think these sanctions will be necessary.
Sure.
Is that some of the dumbest shit ever?
I've explained this to you before about how Asian politics works. You can't be super disrespectful to him and then, expect him to work with you.
Okay.
That's why he's praised him in the past, though.
So threatening him with sanctions if he doesn't follow plans to denuclearize if you threaten that, shouldn't you be doing that? Shouldn't you be enforcing those sanctions that you said need to go in place until you meet these standards? Isn't that Trump just kind of cutting off his own balls?
I mean, we don't know what else has taken place, between then and now.
I don't know. I think I don't know. I think it undercuts our authority in the situation. Steven, opinion?
Well, I mean, I think the chances that the public's getting the full picture is zero. So there's, what goes on between backdoor channels or, rooms behind, rooms wherever, we don't know about those things. And, the government gives us a very manicure, even though it seems chaotic, it's never the full story. So I just don't, if you go on what exactly they're saying, which you shouldn't, it maybe looks bad, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I know that doing something for the reason of liking someone that seems like a game. It doesn't seem like that could be a reason for eliminating or putting sanctions forth. And I'm not sure. I go back and forth on what sanctions do because, who did they affect and stuff like that. I just, Well,
the ultimate goal to sanctions like this are to put economic pressure on the country so that they capitulate to what we want them to do. And what we want them to do is work on denuclearization. Now, we've had these sanctions in place, and it's not doing anything. Because after his first meeting with Kim Jong-un, we saw no indication, no real indication that any dismantling was beginning. In fact, we did, it was reported that they were actually improving, if not just completely going about their normal day-to-day nuclear business up until the time he went for this next meeting. So, in effect, I mean, ultimately his tweet should have said, his opinion should be, well, he's a nice guy, and the sanctions are doing no fucking good anyway.
It's definitely confusing.
Yeah, but if you say that the sanctions do no good anyway, if he needs to put them on again, or if he threatens to put them on again,
not good either. Yeah,
it's gonna have even less effect.
And understand, and I get that he's not removing sanctions, but
he's not putting more on.
He's not allowing them to be stricter about people evading sanctions.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about China, another foreign power, doing this. Now, when the people who are really in this negotiation with North Korea are going to be South Korea and China. Those are the people who are mainly at the table. We're just kind of there as almost like a mediator in a way. Mm-hmm. So we're not really involved directly in the negotiations, except for when we send someone over there. But typically, we're just the power that stops China from being the main, the having all the power, basically. Okay, so here's a point I want to put out there. Huawei, the Chinese company, where we went after the CEO of that company and took down the heads of that company, because part of the reason was because that company ignored Iran's sanctions and carried on business with Iran outside of the sanctions. Now, we went after that company, and we're prosecuting the head of that company for ignoring sanctions with Iran. If China's doing the same fucking thing with North Korea, why are we not pursuing this as opposed to, he's a nice guy, we don't need increased sanctions or any issues there? It's like he's just totally ignoring that China is, again, with a country under sanction, ignoring those sanctions and doing what can we
really do? You know what I mean? Like, what can we do about it? There's not much we can do. So the best thing that we can do is try and spin it in our favor, as opposed to, I don't know, what you want to put sanctions on China, where we get most of our products.
Well, I don't know. Is that what we've come to? China's too big to fail?
No, they're not too big to fail. I think they're too big to threaten with things like this, things that we threaten, third world countries with.
So if it's if it's the most major corporation in China, we can go after the heads of that corporation when it's dealing with Iran. But when it's two companies that are supplying oil to North Korea outside of sanctions, we can let that slide.
Well, it's different with Iran, because Iran is less of a threat, in my opinion, at least.
Iran is no less of a threat because they are nuclear capable as well, and they are just as against us as North Korea always has been.
The region's more important. I mean, the Middle East is more important to us than than Korea, and I think that the government of North Korea, if you just let it play out, would fail sooner than Iran's. I mean, Iran's pretty strong in that region, and there's, kind of don't know what the hell I'm talking about with geopolitics that much, but it just seems like we've heard rumors of the North Korean regime about to fall for a long time, but it's been a long time. I don't know.
Yeah,
to me, it really, I look at it. I look at the two countries. I look at the two situations, and I think, this is like that, like a parent who says, "Okay, both of you kids are grounded for 2 weeks," and then takes Billy aside and says, Billy, you're not really grounded for 2 weeks. Just, just keep it low key. I don't know. I think it undercuts our authority from a global standpoint when we pick and choose who we're going to get in bed with. I don't know. Iran's just, if we went to war with Iran, That would be worse than when we went to war in Iraq. It would be a much harder conflict.
That would be shit. That would be shit.
Yeah,
It would be
not
some
interested.
crazy fucking shit, wouldn't it? That would be some crazy shit. And the same thing, I don't see how that's any different than North Korea. In fact, actually, I think it would be worse to go. Yes, I understand they're more of a threat, but North Korea has intimated that they are just as much of a threat by making pure on threats.
North Korea has more to lose, just because you got that one. An isolated entity is more crazy and more dangerous, and Iran has, they're not just going to fall anytime soon. And if you take out one guy, one family, and North Korea's in chaos, so they can.
Oh, yeah, that would be a chicken running around with his head cut off for sure.
I wish that I wish that was true enough that we actually found out.
I was gonna say that's one of the things that I'm enjoying about the Mueller thing getting released today is that it's nice to just find out. Like, I'm not even at the point of, like, I don't even want to win. Like, I don't even care if my opinion, if what I want to happen happens. I just want to know. Like, I don't have a position on Brexit. I just want the shit to happen. It's just blue balls, yo.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's and sadly, it's that's how it's all going to turn out. This North Korea thing. I mean, this is the same kind of thing.
As a quick aside, though, because you mentioned Brexit, I watched the Parliament, the British Parliament, live when they were doing the the debating before doing the vote, and it's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah,
British Parliament is fucking. They don't give a fuck.
It's way more interesting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like they will call people out and they will talk shit. Like it's insane. Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
Could you imagine
I recommend it.
Could you imagine our House doing that, or the Senate?
That would be awesome. The House is supposed to be like that.
Be so legit.
Yeah, the House is supposed to be more like that, but it's not as much.
Not anymore. I think it used to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, people would fight. Yeah, no, people would have fights. Like, fist fights would open.
Shut up with your tax proposal. I fucked your wife last night.
That's right.
You got bigger issues.
Yeah, they throw down in, like, Eastern Europe and stuff. I've seen some videos of fist fights from, I think, Estonian parliament and Ukrainian and Korean, too, and South Korean. Judo, yo.
Yeah, I've never seen anything from those, but British Parliament was really interesting.
You got to look up this video of this guy like doing a judo throw on another South Korean whatever legislator or whatever. Yeah, he's straight up tossing him.
Hell yeah!
All right, so one final question on this North Korea thing: does it show weakness for him to do that? Is this a weakness in our president that he's showing?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think it's more layered than that. If you got him, I think he's contradicting Bolton, and it just seems like this stinks of something behind the scenes.
Right. So, and that is where I'm asking if it shows weakness, because to the rest of the world, they're going to say, divided, okay,
yeah. I see that.
Somebody's buddy.
Mm.
And that, when you are making policy decisions like this, because you're buddy, but like, I don't know, like you said, something behind the scenes, right? We see what's on the surface. Oh, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. What the fuck makes him a good guy, right? But that to me is a weakness. When you're talking about the world theater, that would come across as a weakness, I would think. John, opinion?
I don't think so. I mean, again, like we know we're at this, coming from a place of power at the negotiations table. Like, still, even with him, he's putting on sanctions, taking them off, putting them on again, threatening to put them on. I think it's just a way to kind of keep them off balance and kind of figure like, oh, what's he gonna do? Like, he's being unpredictable, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And and he's done that with the rest of the world, leaders. Like, everyone's just really confused about what he's going to do next.
Well, I think that the one problem with what you said is that, this position of power, it's not powerful enough to have an impact and make him make changes.
It's already he's gotten more than any other president since North Korea split.
But sitting down and talking with him, and yes, I understand that they're reaching out to South Korea. I get that part. But from that first sit down, how long ago was that? And
last summer, I think, right?
Yeah, it's been quite some time,
less than a year.
And we've seen very little of anything he said was going to happen, if at all. Like even to the extent that the second time they sat down and talked, they wound up not sitting down and talking. It was like the negotiations just stopped. So where do we stand with North Korea? How is it that he walks away from a second negotiation? Both of them walk away with no resolution, and we say he's still a nice guy. No additional sanctions, no increased sanctions.
Again, we don't know everything that's going on.
Right.
Like Steven said, we don't always get the whole picture.
Let's hear it for transparency, right?
Yeah.
Right? Let's vote for transparency. But
generally a good idea.
So I don't know. I don't. This is a blue ball situation for me, Stephen, because I want to see some reward from this progress he's making with North Korea that he says he's making. I need to see some progress, something from North Korea, not seeing things where I'm hearing, they're actually improving upon the base that they were the first base they're supposed to be taking down, and they're actually making improvements to it. What the fuck?
Well, they're just making it into a nice summer home. That's all.
But they're still buddies, and as long as they're still buddies, that's all that matters.
Yeah, he's gonna make it into a nice summer home and then give it to Trump to use when he wants to go on vacation.
So his wife has someplace nice to go.
Yeah,
someplace nice to be barefoot in the kitchen making breakfast.
That's right, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Yeah.
Well, seeing as how you brought that up, John, let's move on to our next topic because
it was kind of a sloppy transition, but it was all right.
It'll work.
Give it like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, well, I saw something interesting the other day, and I thought it would be fun to share. We'll slide back into a little soft and easiness here. This article brought out a guide from the 1940s that explained to male bosses, gave suggestions to male bosses about how to deal with women employees. Now, we're talking 1940s, and we all know what was going on in the 1940s, right? We have World War II. World War II had gone on, and because so many men had gone overseas, what were the women having to do? The women were having to pick up the slack, right? So they were going into factories and working. They were making a league of their own and playing baseball. They were taking on the roles of men while the men weren't here, right? So that was kind of a real movement to more women coming into the working place and staying there after the war ended, right? So what they thought they should do is give male bosses who would not have had much experience with dealing with women, here are some ways that you can deal with women employees, some suggestions on how to handle them and how to make this a better working environment for them. And there's the key to it that I thought was awesome. I'm like, okay, because when I first saw this, I expected to go in this and see some crazy shit. But let's take a look at what we have. So now, first off, you do get the patronizing, page with the picture and the topic heading.
Women are teachable.
Women are teachable, just in case you didn't know. So when you supervise a woman, make clear her part in the process or product on which she works. Make it clear to her what she's doing. Sounds reasonable. Allow for her lack of familiarity with machine processes. Not patronizing, very point blank. They haven't been working in industry, right? See that her working setup is comfortable, safe, and convenient. Wait a minute. You're going to put women in there and you want them to be comfortable, safe, and
safe?
Convenient? Safe?
That's a lot.
Really?
That's asking a lot. I don't know.
Start her right by kindly and careful supervision. I mean, if you're going to start a car, you supervise, you take care of it, right? Well, same thing. Start her right with the right kind of supervision. Avoid horseplay or kidding. She may resent. Right there in the 1940s, they're telling them no dick pics.
No dick pics.
No dick pics. She
No
may
unsolicited.
She may resent that, right? Leave the trench coats at home, fellas. Suggest rather than reprimand.
That's actually usually a pretty good, coping tool anyway, if you're a manager.
Right? Don't reprimand women. Suggest the right way to do things.
I'm just saying in general, that's actually a pretty good advice.
Oh, sure.
If you're, supervising someone.
Right, now, here's one. When she does a good job, tell her so. What? Tell her she's doing a good job?
Yeah, but don't smack her ass when you do it, though. They don't like that.
Listen to and aid her in her work problems. You mean actually talk to her and listen to what she has to say and help her. Horrible advice, right?
Yeah, what if she doesn't stop talking? Right?
So then we find out that women are patient. Women are patient. When you put a woman to work, have a job breakdown of her job. Well, train her, basically. Consider her education, her work experience, and temperament in assigning her to that job. Have the necessary equipment, tools, and supplies ready for her. Make sure she has paper, pencil, glue, whatever she needs, right? It's not too much to ask. Try out her capacity for and familiarity with the work. Make sure she can do the job. It's easy. Assign her to a shift in accordance with health, home obligations, and transportation arrangements. You mean let her work around her schedule? How fucking crazy is that?
Jesus.
That's just insane. Place her in a group of workers with similar backgrounds and interests. Segregate the women.
Right. I don't know if you want to get them all together in a group. They start talking and,
Well, it depends.
I don't know,
It depends on if they have similar backgrounds and interests. Inform her fully on health and safety rules, company policies, and company objectives. Give her the employee handbook. Not so tough. Be sure she knows the location of restrooms, lunch facilities, and dispensaries.
I want to know the location of a dispensary. It'd be pretty sweet.
You have one less than a block away from you.
Yeah, that's true.
They closed it down.
They did.
Don't change her shift too often, and never without notice. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this is almost sounding like they were being nice to women in the workplace.
Well, at least it was suggested that they should be.
Right? Did you know women are careful? They are careful. Whenever you employ a woman, limit her hours to 8 a day and 48 a week, if possible. Only a 6-day work week. Don't work her 7. Arrange brief rest periods in the middle of each shift. Try to make nourishing foods available for lunch periods. They were even suggesting feeding the women. Crazy. Try to provide...
Wait, who's going to make the sandwiches, though? I guess other women?
Yeah. Try to provide a clean place to eat lunch away from her workplace. Make pure and cool drinking water accessible at the whites only fountain. See that toilets and restrooms are clean and adequate. Watch work hazards, moving machinery, dust and fumes, improper lifting, careless housekeeping. Provide properly adjusted work seats, good ventilation and lighting. Recommend proper clothing for each job, safe, comfortable shoes. Try to provide lockers and a place to change to work clothes. You didn't have to come to work in your work clothes if you were a woman. Suggested. Relieve a monotonous job with rest periods. If possible, use music during fatigue periods.
Jesus.
And women are cooperative. They are cooperative 3 weeks out of the month. Steven, don't say things like that.
Yeah, how dare you?
Finally, call on a trained woman counselor in your personnel department to find out what women workers think and want, to discover personal causes of poor work, absenteeism, or turnover, to assist women workers in solving personal difficulties, to interpret women's attitudes and actions, like that's possible, to assist in adjusting women to their jobs. There you have it. That's what they were suggesting in the 1940s when women were coming into the workplace. What the fuck happened to all of that?
That sounds like a lot of work. I think it's better just to use children.
You know, the saddest part about that is that none of that shit was going on for the men.
Oh, no.
Right?
Men are disposable. Yeah, just get rid of them. Throw them at some beach in France. It'll be fine. You don't need all those men.
And surprisingly enough, even with these in place, I believe what women found out was that there was equality. Because when you came into the workplace, you got treated just as shitty as the men did.
That's right. You were just as disposable.
Some good comments in here, but overall most of them kind of lean in about the same direction. I like this. That awkward moment when a condescending pamphlet from the 40s recommends better workplace behavior, training, and accommodations than anyone gets today. I was expecting something incredibly sexist, but it was really just common sense that should be upheld in all workplaces. And this is the common theme that goes through most of these. Is like, well, you know, maybe a little misogynistic, maybe, but why don't we do that shit now? Why don't we have like all workplaces doing the same thing?
See, this person had a good comment that you should have done. Who else read this in a 1940s TV commentator voice?
I was going to.
That would have been amazing.
I couldn't get it. I wasn't able to do it. I couldn't pull it off. Yeah. I love this. Be sure she knows the location of restrooms, lunchrooms, and dispensaries. Otherwise, she will most certainly be wandering around the workplace lost, starving, and pea-stained, mumbling and bumping into walls.
That's true. That's funny.
Yeah, there's that 1940s mindset for you. Coming back strong in the 2000s. But I thought this was an interesting pamphlet from that aspect. It's amazing to me how far we have slid that we don't. I mean, this is not a priority to us. These kind of things are not that important to all. Well, I won't say to everybody, but not all workplaces are anywhere near this, right? I mean, your clean lunchroom is usually trashed. You know, these kind of things. Nobody's taking care of the fucking.
Oh wait, people get a lunchroom.
Bathrooms. Did you know? Speaking of that, did you know that there is no federally mandated lunch break in this country?
Yeah, I did know that.
Unless you're a minor.
Or if you're part of a union.
Well, union.
Well, that's not really mandated, though, by the government. That's union negotiated, but yeah. Which, by the way, is garbage. Union. When I was part of the Teamsters union, it was totally garbage. You got like 15-minute break every 5 hours. And that's enough time to run outside, smoke a cigarette, and then go back to work. Yeah. You know, every 5 hours. It was shit. Absolutely garbage.
But ultimately, should they choose to, you could work at a job and never have a fucking break. There's no required breaks unless you're a minor. And it's surprising to me.
I'm sorry.
The states had their own laws.
This sounds like a joke, but I'm actually wondering, do you mean like a kid or a coal miner? Do you mean like a miner or a kid?
Minor with
a kid, I assume.
Okay.
I assume.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Miners, not miners, you idiot. Who knows where that's from?
Ignorant. I don't know.
I don't know.
That's Galaxy Quest.
Oh, God. That is like your favorite movie.
Miners,
you quote it like all the time.
You idiot.
Yeah, I've got friends.
Yeah.
Don't know that one.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Get
I was going to say about this list, I mean, you know, it's definitely a little condescending and a little like treating them like they're Martians or whatever. But a lot of this stuff, kind of one of my litmus tests for if something is racist or sexist or whatever, is if you switch out the words and if you put in men or just people. A lot of this stuff is straight up good leadership advice.
Yeah,
right. And
it's just straight up good leadership.
And what you said about aliens is right on the money, because in effect, that is what it was like for these businesses that were bringing women in. Most of them had never had a female employee.
Unless it was like a secretary or something like that.
Yeah, maybe something like that, right? So ultimately, there and you can look at any workplace. There is a distinct difference in the way males and females work and interact with their work environment. So this is sound business practice back then. Like you said, you can swap out the gender pronouns throughout this whole thing, and it's really, again, just good business practice. It's teaching us to do the right thing. Now, how many of them followed suit with that? Who knows? But my guess is that in the 1940s, with the standards and values that this country actually had at that time. I mean, when I talk about standards and values, I'm talking about the values of fucking entire droves of women standing up and taking the place of their men in this country while they were off fighting a war. That's values. That's standards. That's America. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of companies actually did take this kind of thing to heart and actually implement many of these things if they could. It just, that's who we were once upon a time. We're not like that anymore. Right? Now
it's a different economy
because
now.
They have to wear the same uniforms. Walmart just had to change. They just changed their dress code, right?
Really?
Because they are appeasing so many people within the company that didn't want to adhere to the dress code. Like, women wearing capri pants when it was specifically stated that you couldn't wear capri pants. Well, now they've just kind of done an open thing with the dress code now. It's like, oh, you can wear your own home clothes, this kind of thing, as long as you don't have writing on your T-shirt. You can wear whatever. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the right colors. For it's like, what the fuck happened to you? What happened to your standards? Because people don't, we're so fucking entitled now. We don't even want to have to wear the uniform that a company is saying that we have to wear to represent the fucking company. And so people walking down the goddamn aisles know that you're a goddamn employee of that company and can help them.
Yeah.
Tell them, Rob.
That's right.
People, man.
Tell us how you really feel. Don't hold back.
Well, just to give you a little back on this, Stephen, my wife works for Wally World, and she's been with them for almost 20 years. And I have to tell you, man, it's rare that I hear any fun stories about dealing with the employees at the different Walmarts that she's worked at.
Yeah.
I mean, they just don't give a fuck in most instances. Most of them are there drawing an hourly check. They don't give a fuck about the store.
Sure.
They don't give a fuck about nothing else. They're just making a paycheck. They're just riding the clock.
Well, that's what happens when you pay your employees like shit. You get shit work back in return.
And when shit gets too big, man, if something gets too big, it's harder and harder to give a fuck. Like, yeah, straight up. So it's almost like, why would they? I mean, other than just personal pride and stuff, but
if you want to make assistant manager of the sports department one day, you really work your ass off. Other than that, no.
Yeah.
It was interesting this week. This week actually, illustrates. She's been telling me this about this employee that she has at work, who's actually in a supervisory level, and it's a display of cookies, and it's like supposed to be set up. These cookies here, these cookies here, these cookies here, these here. This is how it's laid out. These 4 cookies in these 4 places, specific. There's a picture, and we're going to get graded on this when somebody walks through. Three different times this week has explained it to this woman. Today she even went in and set it up for her. And then later in the day when it was restocked, the dumb bitch fucked it up again and just put it in helter-skelter. And it's like, what kind of fucking people are we dealing with in this world? That just don't take a fucking job seriously. Work ethic has gone completely downhill in many places around this country, and it makes me sad.
Yeah. And look at back in the 40s, just in being at war and end of the Great Depression. I mean, these people had serious skin in the game. And your standard Walmart, Costco worker just doesn't. There's not enough serious shit happening, and it's I don't know. I mean, like a lot of the leadership and management books I've read, this is how you're supposed to handle people. You're supposed to treat them with respect. You're supposed to explain it again and again. And I'm a music educator, and I tell my students, if at the end of the day, if they don't get some shit, it's my fault. It's the leader's job to explain properly, and especially the first set of stuff that it says on this site. Make clear her part in the process, allow for lack of familiarity, kindly and carefully supervise. When she does a good job, tell her so. I mean, this is good management. And if if you just swap out person or them for her and person for woman, this reads like good advice. Reads like good advice.
And not only that, but what you're saying goes all the way back to Sun Tzu. You're talking about if your instructions aren't followed, if they weren't clear, then it's the fault of the officers. It's your fault. It's the general's fault. But if they were clear, it's the fault of the officers not enforcing discipline. Same kind of concept, just put to a work. So if the head of the company says something and it's not clear and it gets fucked up, it's his fault.
Well, I will say a lot of it. I think a lot of it is impacted by the size of the company, because if you let's take Walmart for example. So I'm guessing in the headquarters out in Arkansas, like things in this pamphlet, it wouldn't surprise me if that is how things are there at the headquarters. But when you start having stores worldwide, and each one has its own management, and each one has this, that, and the other, and they're all doing their own thing, and even my wife has said that the further you get from the hub of Arkansas, it seems the more loose cannon these stores become, right? Because the cat's away, the mice will play, kind of thing. So, it's that the values aren't being passed down, and then it's also competing with a younger workforce generation that is coming from an entitlement place.
Yeah.
Like it has been shown that the younger generations that are coming to jobs, millennials, and now the Gen Zs, they have far too many expectations going into work. I've been here for 2 months. Why have I not been promoted yet? How am I not getting ahead?
Pay your dues.
Right? Remember when it was just remember when your job wasn't even secure for the first 90 fucking days?
That's how mine was.
90-day probationary period, right? That was before you were even considered, okay, we're going to be seeing you every single fucking day.
Yeah, I was making $10 an hour for my probationary period. And I got bumped up after, but I was making nothing.
But now a lot of younger people are going into jobs with unrealistic expectations. They go in with this mindset from their parents that you can do anything, whatever you do, you're going to be successful at it, and you're going to do really well. And then they get in there and they're like, "Why am I not doing really well?"
Right? They don't realize that they actually have to do well in order to.
Right. You have to show something for all that time you've spent there, not just grind out the work, right?
Yeah.
Ambition, motivation. I don't know that that's being taught as much as it used to, and work ethic definitely is not.
It's also what you were saying earlier. It's also kind of this goes for laws, it goes for books and stuff like that. That just because you write some shit down doesn't mean it's going to happen. I mean, these people were getting treated like shit too, and this is good management advice. And just because you write some shit down doesn't mean it's going to get followed. And people are people.
I think that history would prove companies, various companies. That the larger they get, the less important employees become, the less valuable employees become.
Less valued, I think.
Yeah, the less valued. Yeah. Amazon has recently proven that fact, right? Well, whatever, we'll give you $15 an hour, but we're taking all your stock options. We're taking benefits away from you. And Walmart did a very similar thing last year. They even ran television promotions. We're investing in our people, and they were going to a new minimum wage for their stores where we're going to be paying these people. And seriously, my wife was like, yes. And it's true. It happened. They did do this, right? So when you start at Walmart now, you come in at a specific higher dollar amount than what they were paying. However, within a month of them doing that, they immediately started cutting hours. They started working people 30 hours a week instead of 38 hours a week.
Yep.
So they made up the cost of that increase in wage by minimizing hours and minimizing staff in stores, running.
And they were able to
skeleton
virtue signal.
stores. And what?
They're able to virtue signal because no one's going to look into it. You know,
Right.
people who care about that kind of virtue signaling aren't going to look into what else they're doing.
All people saw
Just,
were the
good,
ads.
$10 an hour, or whatever, $10, whatever their minimum was. Yeah, just
Yeah, all people saw was the propaganda on that they were running in the media, and it was sad. It's these kind of things, and this is, to me that that falls under the guise of corruption for me, in a sense. I really do think so, right? I mean, it's kind of like false advertising, in a sense, to me, right? Duping the American public, as it were.
I don't think it's false advertising because they're doing what they said.
Well, right.
Technically, they're just
propaganda.
also doing other things. Yeah, it's propaganda.
Yeah, the best propaganda's got some truth in it.
Right, they're not technically lying. It's a lie by omission at the very worst. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
They just, they
Not much
just
you can do
didn't
about it.
talk about the second half of the program, right? Well,
Yeah, culture is important. It's the most important thing. I mean, everything, politics, art, economy, it's all part of culture. So the culture of a entity is just so important. And the way it starts, the way that the first day in a business, first day in a job, first day on a team, you set the tone for everything. And yeah.
Well, I ultimately look at it as, if you are, and this is referring to brick and mortar, Amazon wouldn't really fall into this, but, a company like Walmart, to me, the standard of your success is that if you, as the CEO of Walmart, can walk into any one of your stores and see the right processes being done, the right people in the right places doing the right things, that's success. You can make billions of dollars if you want, but if your stores are shitholes, if they're run shitty, if people are unhappy, all of these, you're not successful as a company in the eyes of the worker, in the eyes of the employed, right? Yeah, you've got a lot of money, but when you really get behind the scenes, you see how that money's made, and it starts to look like blood money. The what was it, the blood diamonds, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just.
I don't think it's quite that bad, but
Have you seen how much money they make?
I'm not talking about how much they make. I'm talking about the manner in which they make it is not the same.
Yeah, they pretty much don't give a fuck. I
also don't think they're comparable.
I mean, the first store my wife worked at here, the manager was cooking the books and was in the store. He was literally in the store maybe 8 hours a week, one full day. And he was getting paid fat dollars because some of those because of their bonuses and stuff, they definitely make over six figures if it's a good store.
Yeah, but that's not the same as beating, starving, and killing your employees because they're not working hard enough. I mean, I don't think you can compare it to blood diamonds. Sorry.
Yeah, you guys got to see you guys got to see the Walmart in Sierra Leone.
Have you seen? Have you seen the customers?
Fair enough. The customers. Yeah, the customers are. My God, there's a reason why they have like people of Walmart. I think that's a site, right? Peopleofwalmart.com.
People of Walmart, yeah.
But my God.
He was even fudging his numbers. He was fudging his numbers, and whenever they found out about him, they pulled him out of the store, and they fired him, and then hired him less than 2 months later at another store, doing the same position.
Damn.
It's like, how fucked up are you?
So wait, is Walmart, are there franchises or is it all just
it's
corporate?
all corporate.
Wow. Well, they already knew about him.
Yes.
He must have got a hold of somebody else that wasn't connected to the person who fired him. I don't know.
He was even working for the same district manager.
Yeah.
Oh, then that's really stupid. He must know somebody. He must be someone's son.
There's thoughts that they were in cahoots to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's like with the Catholic Church. Just send that motherfucker to Peru. Like, just transfer his ass.
Because ultimately, if he's playing with the numbers enough to get himself a big fat bonus, guess who else is getting a big fat bonus?
Oh yeah.
That adds to that district bonus, right?
Yeah.
So
fair
I don't
enough.
know. These, but when these kind of things are going on in your company, you're too big and not in control.
Yeah.
So it's just fucking sad, and it impacts the employees. It really.
It's probably
does.
better to franchise once you get large like that.
It's not a bad idea, but some people don't like the idea of franchise because well,
I mean, if
on
one store
both
goes
sides
down,
of it.
someone's doing that, it only affects that one store or a couple of stores and not all of them.
True.
I mean, it's kind of harder to cook the books that way.
But McDonald's had a thing. I want to say it was last year, and I can't remember the exact details of it. But one of their franchise, I think it was McDonald's, one of their franchise owners was doing some fucked up shit in his stores, and McDonald's ultimately had to answer for it because it was going on in one of their franchises, right? So there is still some accountability, some culpability in things that happen even in franchises because it is carrying your good fucking name, right?
I'm just talking about like waste and having corruption, losing money to corruption.
Right.
Is going to be a lot less in a franchise. Right. Obviously, if someone's doing something fucked up under your name, you have to answer for it. Obviously.
Yeah, if you're a franchisor, you can cook the books to where you don't have to pay as much in franchise dues if you have it set up. Hide some of your profits to where you can get off without paying as much, but. I don't know. Franchising, corporate, it's all, it's a hit or miss either way you go. The size you are, even if they were franchising, they wouldn't be keeping enough eyes on it. They don't have enough eyes on what they have now, much less if it was franchised, and you still got to have your eyes on it. But these standards, I like Steven's point. These are, this is real shit. This is the kind of thing, like if you put this to work, sent this out to major corporations, all over a lot of them would be like, fuck, there's no way I could do that. I can't do this kind of thing for people. I'm not going to, what? Why would I bother doing that? That's going to impact my bottom line.
I don't know, though. I mean, you looked at most of those. I mean, you see most of those things that were on that list. Most of those are already in place right now.
No, most of those things are set.
I've not worked anywhere that didn't have a bathroom. Well, yeah, I mean, I've never worked anywhere that didn't have a bathroom. You know what I mean? I've never worked anywhere that.
But was it clean all the time?
The one I work at now, yeah.
Oh,
they actually got to pay someone to come in and clean it once a week.
You work for a decent small company, though. No, I'm not saying small.
Decent size.
Well, I say decent from, quality, and basically a small company in comparison to some of the large corporations, right?
Yeah.
Your company is small enough that they can still keep a handle on their operations and ensure that they're running properly.
Oh yeah, I mean we have someone from corporate come by, probably every month, once a month, and they do like the safety checks and shit like that. I
think in the 4 years I've known my wife, I think that she's seen corporate visitors twice, maybe only once in one of the stores she was in, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah,
it's sad.
It is, right?
Sad.
It is sad. But anyway, so it's these were good. I think these were good lessons to try and teach to male bosses out there, because of course they were all male bosses. There were no female bosses back then. I don't think, really, right? But this was a good teaching tool, and I think that this is the kind of thing that we could use as a teaching tool today. For a lot of companies that I don't know, I don't think a lot of these are really followed in a lot of companies, or at least not 100% by very many companies at all. It's just but it's a teachable moment. If you want to learn, if you want to do right by your employees.
Yeah, now there's that. Just I got to get mine culture.
Right.
Yeah.
That's basically the difference. Just that people more often than not they're they're surviving for whatever reason. They don't give as much of a fuck. The management too. So,
Yeah.
it's culture.
Yeah, why give a fuck? I'm getting paid, right?
Yeah, getting paid either way.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll that was some fun stuff. I enjoyed that thing. I think this was a very enlightening article because I really would have thought that it would have been much more sexist than it actually was. A little condensation never hurt anything.
Yeah,
I get it.
definitely condescending.
Right.
Definitely condescending. Definitely.
But you have
women,
condensation on your
Mars,
car
yeah.
almost every morning, right?
But bam.
Yeah.
So a little condensation never hurt anything.
Unless it's one of those, like, unless it has a bunch of that sticky yellow substance,
The pollen.
the hate crime, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, unless you're a condescending cop. Now, so, something else that happened this week, and actually it didn't happen this week. This actually happened in January. It's just that now that it's getting put out there. Surprisingly enough, I don't know why it took a while. And yes, I know that this article is pulling up on BuzzFeed, but just ignore that because it was still an article. It was still a thing. But in January, a school was having an active shooter drill that was being performed by the local constabulary. Is that how you say it? Constabulary?
Yeah, that's a word. That's a really hard word. It's like constabulatory? I don't know.
Constabulary.
Some shit. That's a really tough word to say. It really is. Oh yeah, Steven's gone. We can talk shit about him.
Steven's gone? All right,
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
In
He
chat,
mentioned
say
it.
all the nasty shit you can about Steven before he gets back. He'll never see it. We'll delete the comments.
That's right.
Anyway,
Anyway, so
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
yeah,
back.
yeah. Nobody said anything.
Yeah, what do you
anyway, you should close the door next time so we don't have to hear it hitting the water.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Should.
I love your mic though. I need to get one.
I threw my
good
cat in.
gain on it.
Yeah.
You threw your cat.
Yeah.
That would be.
It was
go,
nice.
No, seriously, go do that. That would be fun.
We'll throw your cat in the
toilet?
the toilet?
You ever seen a
I don't
cat
think
try
the
and
cat would
take a shit
appreciate
on a
that.
toilet and slip?
No, I've not seen either of those
That's
things.
some funny stuff. That's some funny stuff. Whoa, I slipped off.
I'm a big fan of that toilet pushy.
And it's like, don't freak out. Just stand up. Just fucking stand up. It's not that deep.
I mean, I don't know. If you fell in the toilet, I think you'd freak out a little bit too.
Have you never accidentally like left the lid up and gone in?
No, I've never actually made it all the way in.
No,
I've never actually made it all the way in. Never all the way in, but I have done it to where like I've had to catch myself on whatever's around to stop because that's how you would get AIDS, right? I mean, I'm not trying to get AIDS. As soon as that toilet water touches your butt, that's it, AIDS.
You never really went to any of the classes or discussions on AIDS, did you?
I fell asleep.
Yeah, typical.
But that's what I heard, at least.
Well, they've almost got that cured now, so you're okay. All right, so anyway, back in January, active shooter drill at the school by the local constabulary. And the complaint by the teachers was that
BuzzFeed.
it hurt. Right?
I bet it did.
They were upset. Teachers at an elementary school in Indiana were left with bruises, welts, and in some cases, bloody and broken skin during an active shooter drill in January where they were
Sounds
shot.
like my Saturday night, am I right? High five. Yeah.
Self five. Where they were shot multiple times with plastic pellets. The incident came to light when Gail Zaharalis, a member... Wow, I said that almost right. A member of the Indiana State Teachers Association testified about it before state lawmakers on Wednesday while urging them to amend a school safety bill to prohibit the projectiles during active shooter drills. They want a school safety bill amendment to make sure that nobody shoots airsoft guns at them anymore. 30 teachers at the Medellin Elementary School in Monticello participated in the active shooter drill conducted by the White County Sheriff's Department.
The White County Sheriff's Department.
County Sheriff's
It's
Department.
all Heights County.
White.
As part of the drill, 4 teachers at a time were taken into a small room told to turn around and crouch down and then rapidly shot in the back 3 or 4 times with plastic pellets from an airsoft gun. In tweets,
Sorry.
in tweets describing the incident on Thursday, the ISTA said the teachers were shot execution style with projectiles.
This is ridiculous.
Keep on. Here it comes. The teachers were instructed not to tell the others what had happened inside the room, and the sheriff's department did not warn any of the participants about what was going to happen, according to the ISTA. Other teachers waiting outside the room could hear screaming from inside before they were brought into the room and shot at.
My sides.
Many of the teachers experienced soreness, bruising, and welts, while some experienced bleeding and broken skin. Not all the teachers were injured. One teacher who was shot at 4 times told the Indianapolis Star that the sheriff's officials conducting the drill told the teachers, "This is what happens if you cower and do nothing.
That's
if
right.
you do exactly what the person with the gun tells you to fucking do, this is what
happens. That's right.
They shot all of us across our backs. It hurt so bad." But the teacher did not wish to be identified. She's probably fearing retaliation by the airsoft gang.
Oh my god. Roving gangs of airsoft kids.
The airsoft lobby.
Yeah, the airsoft lobby, yeah.
But they were very happy after it happened, thankful for the partnership between our school and local law enforcement. Today, our staff received training from the White County Sheriff's Department. Safety is priority at ML. So they seemed okay with it right after. So this is a program, the curriculum is called ALICE, and ALICE stands for, is an acronym for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate.
Hell yeah.
So there is what they were trying to teach in that room. Counter. And this was...
Yeah, they were saying, if you soak up all the bullets, then he can't shoot anymore. The shooter can't shoot any more people. So you just got to take all those bullets, and then you'll be fine. Just soak them up.
So, A, what's the closest you've ever been shot by an airsoft gun?
Not very close.
Point blank for me.
And was it CO2 or spring action?
It was one of the ones you pump.
Okay.
The spring.
Action? Yeah.
But it was a plastic pellet.
Yeah.
How did it feel?
It hurt.
Hell yeah.
Did it hurt like hell?
I don't know. I was young.
Did it hurt? Did it hurt so bad?
So bad. It hurt so bad, you guys.
Did it hurt bad enough to go cry about an amendment to the school bill? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty conflicted on this. I'm pretty conflicted on this because
it is kind of hardcore training, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're in the actual situation and you get shot, you're dead, and it just seems like.
I mean, not after that training. They're ready to take it now.
Yeah. Seems a little over the top, but I don't know.
Was it a semi-automatic or automatic airsoft? That's a good question. We don't know.
See, this program empowers individuals to participate in their own survival in the critical time between the start of a violent event and the arrival of law enforcement. I don't know. It's
Were they warned?
No, apparently not.
It's just a sting. It was just a straight up surprise.
Just go ahead and cower. Okay, bam.
I mean, they knew they were going to have the training, but they didn't know how it was going to go that far. Sheriff Bill Brooks did say we were made aware that one teacher was upset, and
she said the safe word, so they had to end it.
Right. But they are soft, round projectiles, and he did tell them the key here is soft. But I will say this. If those were CO2 powered BB pellets or BBs, those could fucking hurt because those CO2s put out a lot more juice than a regular pump does in most cases.
Oh yeah.
Right? I did tell this to John off mic, and I'll say it again. I think this was the wrong approach. Because what they
it was a funnier approach. I'll give them that.
They should have been teaching the teachers self-defense mechanics as opposed to taking them in and show them what an execution would feel like.
Dude, I was gonna say, like, getting shot is not training. I'm a big fan of gun rights and stuff. I just don't. If they indeed were put on their if they were indeed put on their knees and shot execution style, it's not training. That's being shot at point blank range with an airsoft gun. Well, that doesn't train you.
Well, I mean, for the next session, they'll be able to move up to like a 22 caliber. See if they can handle that, and then we'll move up to larger rounds.
You know exactly what this reminded me of, and I don't know if younger generations have to deal with this, but back in the day, once upon a time when I was a kid, if you got caught smoking, and it didn't happen to me, but I did know a couple of kids that it happened to.
Make you smoke the whole pack.
Smoke the whole pack. You're gonna learn what it means to smoke.
That happened to my cousin, and he smokes now. So I don't know if that really works all that well.
Yeah, he does heroin now.
Yeah. 10 years later, bam, AIDS.
Tinchy did raise a couple of good points. Was it also a semi-automatic or automatic airsoft gun?
Right.
But he does mention that the airsofts are soft, but I wouldn't say those plastic airsoffts are soft. They're pretty hard. Now, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, aren't there two types of airsoft pellets? There are some that are squishy, and there are some that are hard, right?
Here.
Because I have hard ones for all the ones that I have for my airsoft guns. But I'm pretty sure there are some soft, like those yellow soft squish pellets that you can use.
Well, I've got like these little plastic ones.
Right, those are hard, right? Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, they're pretty hard. Like I can't really kind of squeeze it.
You're hitting me in the eye, John. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, I'm just not a fan of the straight up just pain as training. Like I train martial arts and boxing sometimes, and there's a difference between training boxing and just them unloading on you. Just like like there's boxing training and there's those training where you just take punches to the chin, and I can see if they, even up to the point of like you complied with the shooter and then they put the gun to the back of your head and they say bang. But there's no training from just getting shot. It just makes me laugh how ridiculous this is. Like,
now, ultimately, again, that's like that smoking thing. This is to, I ultimately believe that it was like just the terror tactic, so you understand what these kids are going to fucking go through and why you need to get off your ass and fucking do something. Now you understand something similar to what it's like to be in this environment, to be in the middle of this. This is what's going to happen. This is what kids are going to deal with. Do something about it. Now, yes, I agree. It's a little too far. Probably someone at the top in the sheriff's department told them, don't worry, these aren't going to hurt them. Just shoot them in the back.
There's a sadist somewhere in there, yo. There's some kind of pain porn going on there somewhere.
Yeah.
See, and Tinchy points out, my other point from the chat, if the correct answer is for the teachers to have fought back, then the answer requires assaulting police officers. Even in training, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
That's a good point.
And
I don't think they were intending for them to fight back, or they were showing, like, this is what happens if you don't. Doesn't mean that they should have. Like, there was no correct answer.
Well,
they just were supposed to do what they were told,
but
that was it.
If one of them had stood up and attempted to do something about it. Now, it doesn't require, like, you're in a training exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're not gonna be in the middle of this fake incident and stand up and get real and punch the fucking cop. You're going to get up and to take the gun away from him, right? You're going to show some act of defiance and try to stop the shooter.
Any self-defense instructor would never tell you to try and take the gun away unless you absolutely have to.
Unless you had been trained to take the gun away, right? But
even
some
then,
way to stop them.
Even then, they always tell you to just give them whatever you have.
Well,
don't resist unless.
But that's not what they're teaching them here. They're telling them don't cower and do nothing, or this is what happens. They're telling them to fight back. You need to fight back in some way, shape, or form, and that is the skill set they should have been giving these teachers: is how to fight back, not how to take a bullet in the back.
Giving them a bucket of rocks, like in that one place.
I can safely say my opinion is
Nice.
this is horrible training, because in good training you do incrementalism. And to properly train someone, you don't do it once, you do it many, many times, and you expose them to like the step-by-step process of it. And this is shit teaching.
Yeah,
right.
And that's it. This is shock and awe teaching, because they know they're only going to get one shot. They're going to be in there one day, so this is shock and awe teaching. And it's not surprising from, and I'm going to use the term militaristic organization, because in a sense police are somewhat militaristic. The mindset there is, the harder core it is, the more you learn. Like, you want impact, you want shock and awe to wake these people up and make sure that they do something. Doesn't mean it didn't go across a line, but but it was interesting that they went this route. And, I agree with you to a certain extent, John. I don't think we need to teach them to fight back in that way. Like, you definitely don't want to get into a hand-to-hand with somebody with a gun if you don't know how to disarm somebody, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It's more about, okay, here are effective ways to get the fuck out. Here are things that you can do. So active shooters coming in the front door of the school, you hear the first shots. Here are your exit points. Here's the safest route to get the fuck out.
You generally probably don't even want to leave. Unless you're on like the first floor and you can go out a window, you probably don't want to leave the room. You want to be able to barricade it and get off to a corner where you can't be seen, because as soon as they try and get into the door and they can't, they're going to move on to the next one.
Right. And
they're trying to get as many kills as they can before they get ended. Like, that's the goal of it, right? Is to rack up the body count.
Right. And when it's all said and done, if I were on a lower floor in a situation, you're fucking right. I'm out the goddamn window, because the safest place during a situation like that is not inside.
No.
It's outside where you can run your ass off.
Right, because the further you are, the less likely you're going to get hit.
Right. He's not coming out to shoot people, right? He's got too much to do inside.
It's a lot easier when they're inside, all huddled together. Yeah.
Right? Look at you clumping up. This is going to be easy pickets. Go for
I was going to say, if you can't get out and you're trapped, you're supposed to create chaos. That's really what you're supposed to do. You're not, I guess taking on the shooter is part of that chaos, but you're supposed to just cause a ruckus, throw shit, yell shit, be loud, flip tables, and try to charge them, and it is a him, by the way.
Right. It's always a white male.
White male. Sorry, statistics.
Yeah.
It's sad, but sorry, statistics.
But this is shit teaching. This is shit training.
This is the conversation we were having in the show suggestion earlier. Tinchy and I were in there with Seawall, and Seawall had made a good point. He's like, if you're trying to get teachers to actively protect the children by dealing with the shooter, well, you're not fucking paying them enough, right?
Yeah.
How do you tell a teacher to do something like that, right? Especially with this kind of intense bullshit that training seminar, you're really trying to drive it home. Put your life at risk for these fucking kids. Well, they need to get paid for that. They need to get paid more for that.
Well, so that's why I'm okay with. I'm okay with if there's a proposal going around somewhere, or at least like a suggestion of a policy where if teachers go and get concealed carry permits and carry on school, then they should get paid extra, for having that, for doing that. But then they also have an obligation to at least try and take out the shooter if that happens.
Steven, you just posted something in chat, and I have to ask you, it's a little off topic. Did you pull that from a video game?
Yeah, it's from Smash TV.
Smash TV!
Yeah, Smash TV.
I remember playing that.
The game's legit.
From the arcade?
Yeah, that game was great.
From the arcade or from your console?
No, I've played in an arcade too, actually.
I used to play that shit console, in the arcade all the time, man. That shit was... I love to get on that because it was one of the loudest games right there.
That is a quarter killer too, man.
Yeah, that game is brutal. You're mowing down like hundreds of people.
Yeah. Well, no, it'll also kill your quarters because you die constantly. You got to pump in more quarters constantly.
Much like more. Gauntlet.
Like Gauntlet.
Oh. Needs food badly.
That's a deep cut. White musician needs food badly.
All right. So while we're on the topic of guns, Yet another interesting thing happened today. And it happened, the source of this happening was everybody's favorite new person in Washington, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. How many names does she have? Three?
Nina
AOC.
Pinto Santa Maria Cortez.
Right, Nina Pinto Santa Maria.
Yeah.
So AOC came out today with, she has proposed some new gun legislation, some ideas about gun control that will really solve problems for us. It's a very
I think it'll solve everything.
It'll solve America's gun issues. It's a 4-point plan. It's very simple. Okay? Now, the first one on the list is that we need to pass universal background checks. Now,
Already a thing, right?
Well, not universal.
Obviously.
Private sellers don't have to do them, and this is where the issue comes in for a lot of people in Washington, or the gun people, or the anti-gun people. I will say that I'm not against it. I'm not against universal background checks because I do think there's a lot of guns change hands in this country in private sales that maybe shouldn't. Like if a guy knows he can't get a background check done, but he can get a gun from somebody he knows. That's kind of fucked up, right? If he shouldn't have a gun, anybody who sells him one should be doing a check on him, right? Now that doesn't mean it's going to happen. I understand, but if the legislation's there, we're not going to do anything. If the legislation is there, we can at least prosecute. So if Joe Blow gets caught in a crime using a gun, and we find out where he got the gun, then we go back to the guy who sold him the gun and say, "You sold it to him without doing a background check. You're liable." That's reasonable.
Even if he just borrows it from someone or steals it from someone, you know what I mean? Like
fine.
there's a lot of.
That's
I mean, if someone steals it,
oh, go ahead.
Then you would so someone steals the gun from someone, then is that person now culpable?
No, not at all. Not from a theft. As long as you register the theft,
you have to prove that it was actually stolen, though.
No,
or that it wasn't stolen. You have to prove that it was paid for.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of problems with that.
Well, sure. But ultimately, this is also going to force, anywhere that you buy a gun legitimately from a private seller, they need to do a background check. And I don't think that's asking too much, right? If you're a legitimate gun seller...
I think that adds a lot of... Well, no, if you're a gun seller, yes. But if you're a private... If you're just selling to, like, a friend,
what if you're a private collector, but you're selling off some of your collection?
Then you need to have... Don't you have to have an FFL? Don't you have to have an FFL then, if you're selling to a collector?
No. If you are a collector, but you're selling off your collection as a private seller...
if you're a collector, I think you would have an FFL. I'm not 100% sure, honestly.
I don't see why you would need an FFL if you're just a collector, because the FFL is for selling firearms, right?
So if you're selling firearms, yeah.
Right. So if
you need to have an FFL.
If you're a collector and then you decide to get rid of your collection... I don't know if you have to go get an FFL to sell them, but you're just a private seller posting your guns on Craigslist or on eBay to sell them. I don't know where you would be able to do it, or selling to, whatever. If you're that guy, you need to do background checks on who you're selling your guns to. I don't think that's a horrible thing to ask, because it is through this way that many people who shouldn't have guns do get guns. It's one of the avenues. Okay, so, we don't have to go too deep into it, but I'm just saying I don't completely disagree with that. Right? I wasn't a big fan of the 10-day waiting period versus the 3-day, because I think that our government needs to get their bureaucracy straight so they can do things in a reasonable amount of time, right? And 3 days is reasonable. So it is what it is. I do think that we need to make sure that whoever's selling guns legitimately is selling to the right people, though. All right, disarm domestic abusers. Now, you talked about this a little off mic. So if they have been convicted of domestic abuse, they fall under the perimeter of people who can't get guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what she's saying is this kind of extends to, people who've been reported for domestic abuse, but maybe haven't been tried, or if they have restraining orders against them from somebody else, they should not qualify for getting a gun either.
Yeah, see, that's absolutely ridiculous, because if you haven't been convicted of a crime, you have no reason to have your rights taken away. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Now, see, back to the other one real quick. Midget doesn't agree with me that private sellers should have to pay for it. But,
I do like what he has to say there, where he says maybe if a buyer might have a valid a background check for a period of time. So like you know,
Sure.
you do a background check and it lasts for a year or 2 years or whatever.
I don't think it
I
could.
mean,
At
maybe,
best, I think you would get
but
6 months out of them.
yeah.
Because you can be an upstanding citizen today and commit a crime tomorrow. That
Well, yeah, you can do that with
disqualifies you, right?
any amount of time, though. I
Sure.
mean, especially if you buy a gun, you know,
But
and become a
anti-gun
criminal the
people
next
are
day.
not going to want something. They're not going to want a 2-year moratorium on background checks for anybody. They're going to bitch. They're going to negotiate it down to something much smaller, like 6 months. I would think. Even if
Yeah.
they couldn't stretch it to get it down to a 90-day window. But I do agree with that. I don't think that's bad. An uninhibited license? The fuck? No. Like you're talking. So are you talking like the pass you get for airports, kind of uninhibited license? Basically, you have one background check and you're good to go. Tenchi, is that what you're referring to?
That's what it sounds like he's saying.
Because that's just that way leads to madness. Because then you
I
can
mean,
just
if it's
get your
good enough
gun.
for the airport,
But you,
you know.
well, yeah, but with them, the thought is, okay, yes, you've got this pass to skip security, but if for some reason you hit the no-fly list, we're gonna put a stop to that kind of thing, right?
Right.
If you do anything, but an uninhibited license, I mean, to give someone a once-a-year renewed license with a specific ID number, sure, okay, yes, and now that's good because in that is a great way to do it because you could just plug that ID into a system and into your store system, and it doesn't do a background check. It just references a database where the background, that nothing has impeded the right to get a gun in the last year or in that time frame that license is good for. I like that thought. So you can
As
still
in, you
run
can't
a
be
check on
denied
the
for
person.
it.
Right.
Yes, it would be very important that you can't be denied getting the ID because,
Right. Well, if you're legitimate,
yeah,
if you're legitimate and it's legal for you to get the ID, there would be nothing stopping it. Stephen,
Yeah.
in talking about this, Stephen, you own guns. How hard has it been for you to get guns?
Hard. I live in Washington D.C. and it's a process.
More than 3 days?
Yes.
Really? Why?
I don't know. It has to get ran through the ATF, and in DC you have to go down. It's a multi-day process. I don't actually know what the number of days is, but it's more than 3.
Do you think that's because you're in the capital?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think some of that is because you're in the capital?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's
Now
it's just. Yeah, it takes a couple days, and I don't have a problem. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I'm going to comply with the law either way. And
so as a gun owner, I've asked John this question: the background check itself. Do you think it's a good idea to prevent people from getting guns that shouldn't have them?
it's all about the wording. Passing universal background checks. I mean, I just when I think about the broader picture, it's just funny how we've passed more gun laws in the last 30 years, and in the last 30 years is when most of the shootings have happened. So, for me, a lot of it is more state power is not the answer. The answer is cultural, and and not to do like whataboutism or whatever, but 100 years ago or 120 years ago, especially in rural areas, everyone had a gun and there were no mass shootings. And
right.
Again, it's just all about the wording. I mean, the law can get twisted even with the right wording.
Well, and to the question I ask you, and it's not specific to the universal. It's just the simple the 3-day background check. Do you think that is an effective, or is plausible for, necessary to help keep guns out of the hands of people? Because there are people that literally apply for background checks to get guns that are either fugitives from justice or have felonies. They still go and try and get guns even though they shouldn't have them, and the background checks stop them from being able to purchase. So do you agree
Yeah,
that
they also get
background
through
check
though,
at
don't
all
they?
is a good thing?
I don't know, man. I actually don't know. I know that if it's stopping crazy sickos, anything that stops that is good. It's just my preferred way of stopping stuff is not the state. It's smaller than that. It's the family, the culture, the community. And
So would
you know,
you be happy with not having background checks and anybody could just go purchase weapons? Purchase guns?
no. I think if you've been convicted of my problem is is having it federally mandated. When big government does these type of things, it ends horribly. I mean, it may not be in the next 5 to 6 years, but eventually, like, name me a state power that's ever decreased its power, and it never happens ever. So that's what my worry is. And if we're arguing the abstract of should people that are convicted violent criminals just be allowed free reign? No, I don't think so. But I also tend to think that any way we can steer this big government ship around, it would be good too. This one's hard. I would not be happy seeing a person who, you know, beat and killed his wife allowed to get guns. But I think John was just saying that those people get approved all the time. So I just don't.
Not if they've been convicted.
They slip through the cracks quite often.
I'm just saying bad people.
That last.
I'm just saying bad people that, you know, people. You know, the government makes mistakes. Sometimes they don't get approved. Sometimes they do. And you know, I just, you know, if we could have some sort of private entity that could be in charge of this, but you know, disarming the public as a general rule. I mean, the universal that doesn't say bad people, that says everybody.
And right, it just says every private sellers and businesses would then have to do background checks. It's really all it's saying. It's just expanding who has to do background checks. Now, one of the things I did find out in doing some research on the statistics, and it's one of the major crack that people fall through, is that if the background check does not come back in 3 days, the seller has the option to go ahead and make the firearm sale without the background check being completed.
Right.
And that is a very big loophole that a lot of people can get their hands on guns. But now the next one she pointed out was mandating safe storage. We talked a little bit about this, Stephen, off Mike. Mandated safe storage. Now, is it okay for the government to tell us how we keep our guns?
Hell no, that's in your house.
The more that they're in our homes and our privacy, this is bullshit, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you enforce it without sending someone around? You're not going to change
shit with this type of stuff. Not everything on that list, but I don't think that the government has a place in sex and homes. Okay. It's the culture. This is cultural.
So now, one of the an article that I had put in earlier this week talking about guns had talked about the number of children dying from gun-related due to gun-related deaths, and this is talking about children between the ages of 5 and 18. Overall, the numbers are higher than the number of police officers and active duty military that died in the same year.
I mean, what's their methodology, though? Because that sounds like that could include all the school shootings that have been happening.
No. Well, gun-related...
It sounds like that can include gang violence as well.
It's just talking about the number of children between those ages that were killed due to gun-related violence over the course of the year.
That's what I'm saying. So that's a lot of these school shootings, gang violence,
many of them, but
things like that.
There was a very strong percentage of them that were accidental shootings that happened in the homes. Now, therein comes the next question. Okay, so the government should not be able to mandate some safekeeping for your guns, right? But I've mentioned this to John before, and I'll get your opinion on it, Stephen. I do believe that if you are going to, that there has to be a certain level of responsibility that is imposed upon gun owners from the standpoint of safety, right? I don't
think imposed is the right word. Okay. Obligated, sure, but imposed, no. It's your own.
How do we ensure the safety of children in homes with guns by ensuring the responsibility of the parent to teach the children about gun safety? How do we ensure that, or is it a concern for us to worry about?
It's again cultural.
Yeah, man, it's the privately or culturally enforced. I mean, what happened to the community, yo?
Hmm.
Like,
We don't
that's
want.
kind of
Go
there's.
ahead.
We
If you mean us, but like the government, it's just all Big Daddy shit. And I just,
Hmm.
well,
give me an example of Big Daddy fixing it.
right. Well, that's when that's where we come in with gun legislation, right? I mean, you talk about the community, but look around you.
There isn't any.
Where
Yeah.
are your communities?
Hmm.
It's not to say that there are not hot spots in this country where there are strong communities. Usually it's going to be smaller towns, right? These kind of things where these kind of incidents aren't happening anyway in many of these places where there are these strong communities. But as a whole, from the standpoint of the country, we are far from having any kind of community anymore.
Yeah.
Those are old. That's good old days. That's way the fuck
That's
back
gone.
there.
You're right.
That's
Yeah.
back in
Yeah,
the
and
1940s when they were putting out pamphlets on how to treat women right at work,
well,
kind of thing.
so I
right?
think a big reason for that is the fact that we want everything to be done from the top down.
Right. We've
We
been asking
ask
for it for
the
years,
federal
right?
government to do
It,
everything for us instead of doing it ourselves,
it
and
backfires
that's the
so
biggest
hard.
problem.
It
Yeah,
backfires so hard when it's
But
top down government doing
well,
it.
yes,
yeah.
I will say yes, that may be true. But do you not think that if we were doing these things from an individual state level, we would not see some of these same backfires? So, for instance, if I live in Georgia and Alabama's right next door, and in Georgia, I can feel, we're letting states make their own gun laws. So in Georgia, I'm capable of
Hmm.
getting a gun, which I would not be able to get in Alabama because, for whatever reason, whatever criminal past I have, but it's okay in Georgia because they're much looser with their gun laws. So if
Hmm.
I get my gun in Georgia, then I can just go to Alabama and wipe people out if I want because they piss me
Good
off and
luck.
wouldn't give me a gun. But you understand what I'm saying? I mean, when we're talking about it from an individual state level, does that in some way not lead a little bit more to that Wild West mentality? Like some states are just, everybody's walking around with guns on their hips. And yes, I understand that's probably a safer fucking environment. I get it.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But, is it not also asking for, shootouts on the fucking street? People waving guns around in other people's faces. Things
I
that
mean,
don't
was that
adhere
happening?
to a community.
Was that happening before? We had all this top-down control from the federal government. Was that really happening? I mean, we had duels and stuff, before. It wasn't just people wantonly shooting each other in the streets. It was organized. It was like, oh, we'll meet in front of the courthouse at dawn. Take a couple steps and fire pistols at each other. If
Right.
no one dies, no one dies. We just move
Well,
on.
I mean, when I was growing up, you would see things in history books and this and the other, and you'd read stories about this person and that person from back in the, and we'll call it the Wild West days, right? The early days
Hmm.
of the country, and you know, when I recollect all that stuff, I remember reading so and so this he did this and was shot dead
Hmm.
in the streets of this town. So and so
Sure.
did this and was shot dead in the streets of this town. Blah blah blah. And it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily all bad things. Even good guys were getting shot down in the streets of this town or that town. And I'm like,
Sure.
people were just getting shot down everywhere. Now, there had to be some reason why it got really overblown in movies.
Well, it's
Right? There
exciting.
had to
Yeah.
be
I
something to
mean,
base
that's
that
yeah.
off of, right? Because we were a lot more loose cannon, no pun intended,
Yeah.
with guns
I'm not.
once
I'm
upon a
not saying it
time.
never happened, but it wasn't like an everyday occurrence. That's why it was documented as like it was. Because it was a rare occurrence.
I mean, do either one of you think that states can regulate guns better than the federal government can?
100%. Yeah.
It's that they should.
All
It's not
states-
that they
Also
can.
that, but I do think they can
see,
also better.
Yeah.
But see, there you go. Now you're saying gun regulation is okay, as long as it's
Mhm.
coming from the right level.
We've already said that so things like the background checks,
Right.
in
But
general,
and
no
that
problem
goes
with
and that
them.
goes back to my ultimate bottom line question: does that not
Which we
blow the
get to.
entire Second Amendment out of the water? Because any kind of regulation is infringement.
But yeah, we've talked about that before, where
Right. So, but I
we've talked
still
about it on
stand
the
on that.
show and off the show,
That almost
and
that kind
already
of
proven.
nullifies the Second Amendment, so you can really kind of do what you want with gun law. You don't have to adhere to the Second Amendment because as soon as people accept any infringement, right? Am I
I mean, I
wrong
could
there?
go full ANCAP and say that, yeah, I want my McNuke, but I mean,
Oh,
I'm
and I
willing to negotiate
understand.
a little bit, willing to compromise a little bit. I don't think people should own nukes. We can start there and work our way, to a more, uh, happy medium, I guess.
Again, I'm not anti-gun. I'm not saying go out and take guns off the streets and take them out of everybody's homes. I'm not like that at all. I want people to have their
Yeah.
guns. I'm good with that. But I want people to have their guns in the right way. But I don't want people sitting around saying, oh, well, I believe this, the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment. But I'm okay with background checks. I'm okay with a little of this, a little of that. Well, now you're just telling me that the Second Amendment means shit to you.
I don't think that's true. I don't think it has to be hardcore one or the other.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be a hard line,
right.
Either no regulation or all the regulation.
Okay.
And we can meet in the middle somewhere.
But every time new regulation is put forward, it is the Second Amendment that people start preaching. And that's the part that bothers me. Is there's a little bit of hypocrisy there, and I don't cotton to it.
Well, I mean, it has to do with, all right, fine, we accept this legislation. Oh, you're trying to put more? Well, what the hell? We put the line here. All right, fine. Now we have that regulation. All right, fine.
Fortunately,
but no more. All right, you're doing more. That's kind of where it goes. Because it's the line in the sand. Oh, no further, and then they step over that line, and you make another one. What I mean?
I think if you really looked into it, you'd see that more gun legislation gets shot down than gets put through.
Probably, as it should.
And looking at our gun legislation that's on the books, the bulk of it is geared around how we sell and transfer guns. Not even about there's very just the little bits that talk about who should not have guns. The rest is about selling and transfer, which is fine. Let's regulate the sale of guns, to where we make sure that the wrong people aren't getting them. So it's the sky's not falling. I believe our First Amendment is in more danger of being taken away than our Second.
Yeah, but you defend the first with the second.
It's funny how you say that.
Okay. We'll see.
So the last thing that she calls for is that bump stocks, semi-autos, and high cap mags that are designed to kill people are banned as well.
Show me the ones that aren't.
Wait, no. Show me the magazine. Show me one death from someone who's been killed by a magazine.
No, I mean the design. Guns are designed to do that, and
no, it's just funny. The wording is funny.
Yeah, the wording is ridiculous.
Apparently, even the airsoft guns are designed to kill.
Well, no, I'm saying the wording is just funny because it says high capacity magazines designed to kill people.
Oh yeah.
Suggesting that it's actually the magazine that kills people and not the gun itself. Yeah.
So I don't have an issue with banning bump stocks. I kind of get it, so I don't have a huge problem with that. The high cap mags, I talked to John a little bit about this. So it's like, why do you need a 30 to 50 round mag?
I mean, why do you need a 10-round magazine?
Well,
I mean, what are you going to use it for? Why do you need that?
Well, if why
do you need a 5-round magazine?
Because you're a shitty shot, and that guy's going to come down your hallway and get there by the 5th or 6th shot that you finally hit him with.
Let's just use muskets again. That sounds like fun.
But the semi-autos, I think semi-autos is just one of the dumbest things to add in there, only from the standpoint that pretty much covers most weapons that are out there.
It does.
Because even a
almost all
revolver
of
can
them
be considered semi-automatic, right?
Yeah, it's one squeeze, one trigger pull, one round. That's a semi-automatic.
And it's automatically fed, much like a clip gun, right?
Yeah.
Or a magazine. So, it's when you include that, and she included that simply because of fucking Denmark.
I wonder if that would include belt fed. That would be interesting. Yeah, that's not a magazine.
No, that's true.
There's no magazine.
You carry your little box with your ammo chain in it, right?
Yeah. Get your bipod and just set it up and just pop, 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 pop. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this, I don't know. It's hard for me to debate it because I don't trust government to not move the goalposts again.
Right.
It's kind of like what Trump was saying about Kim Jong. Like, I don't believe Trump likes Kim Jong Un. I think he's saying it as a negotiating tactic. And same thing here. They're just, government's going to take as much as we give them, and they're untrustworthy. So, you know, how can you debate something when there's not truth involved?
Right. Well,
like, it's a good point. Yeah.
Well, here's you know, I've told this to John, and I'll tell it to you. Here's a fact. I'm 50 years old, and all of my life, growing up in the Midwest, around guns, I've heard it for 40 years. They're taking our guns away. They're trying to take our guns away. They're trying to take our guns away. Guess what? Nobody has taken your guns away. They're still not taking them away. And John says, oh, they're just chipping away. They're chipping away. But they've been chipping away for obviously for a long fucking time. And they've done no good, because gun manufacturing and gun sales are at their highest levels that they've ever been. We're not losing our guns. People with a legitimate right to own a gun have a gun. People who don't have a legitimate right to own a gun have fucking guns. So we're not. I still think this is a Chicken Little mindset. That
this is what you're going to be
government fear, as opposed to actually something that's happening. Because if it still takes another 40 years, you guys are going to be too old to fucking care what they do about guns.
That's not true. I'm going to stick to principle. But this is what you guys are going to be discussing with J. Edgar, right?
Yeah,
this exact kind of thing.
He still hasn't reached out to me, but yeah, this is the thing. It's just, you know, I will stand on this solid and firm. Hell, even my grandfather, who was he was in his 50s or 60s when they adopted me at 2 or 3 years old, he even talked about how they've been trying to take guns from us for years.
Right, and so my point
is, have our guns. This is just how we are.
What's the difference in gun laws between then and now?
Well, I'm sure there's, they didn't have background checks then, right? And we had automatic weapons were okay, I believe.
Yep.
So those are about the only two real things that are impeding gun ownership at this point.
Did they have, I genuinely don't know, did they have concealed carry permits, things like that, or could you just conceal carry?
That
legally?
Was all about where you were at. I think in Oklahoma you could carry. I think it was just an open carry law in Oklahoma. I know Texas did.
I'm not talking about open carry. I'm talking about concealed carry.
Oh, I don't know about concealed carry. Well, my grandfather kept a was it a 38 or I think it was a 38 under the seat of his car. But I don't know that he had a license to carry that. But again, that means I also don't know if it was required, because I was too young. I was 15 by the time I left there, and I owned guns and didn't think anything about it. But I didn't have handguns, because that's where the break line with concealed carry, to a certain extent, is mostly regarding handguns, because you can't really conceal carry too many shotguns.
Yeah.
But so that I couldn't be sure about. But outside of that, really, the background check, the time period to get a gun, is about the only real dastardly thing that's been done in the last 40 years. That
I mean, I'm sure there's other manufacturing regulations and things like that were done.
Sure,
I'm sure adding serial numbers to guns was another thing that was added. At least maybe not in your lifetime, in your grandfather's, maybe.
Right.
But I'm sure there's more than just like the big things. I'm sure there's a lot of small things that went into it.
Things that impede gun owners from getting guns. The background check is really the biggest impediment that's been instituted in getting a gun, and it's just a waiting period, right? It was what were you just saying? Damn it, the thought was scattered out of my fucking head right after you said it, because I said something else. It was just you had guns, and people said they were going to be taken away. I don't think we can chip away a gun law, because more gets shot down than gets passed.
I think that it's kind of like, I hear you on that they're not coming for our guns. It's more, not more, but I feel like our freedom is more under attack than the guns. I mean, it seems like there's all this language like Americans don't need, instead of training children's, like, we're free to do these things. And more than anything, they're not saying we're coming for these guns, but they're saying things like Americans don't need. Get out of here, man. Like, if I'm a law-abiding citizen, like, what are you saying about what I do or don't need? That's not the government's job at all. Even you could argue this from a food, a health, a relationships standpoint. Like, what is a congressperson's business to say what an American citizen needs or doesn't need? A lot of it's like the anti-freedom language, rather than someone coming to your door to take it. It's like, at the end of the day, they won't need to take guns if they've eroded the freedoms enough.
Right.
It's
that's
great point. Yeah.
Outrageous.
And that's the point I was trying to make when I said I'm more worried about the First Amendment than I am the Second Amendment. Because
at the end of the day, John's right though about like, when the buck stops, it's power is the use of force.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it seems like a right-wing trope at this point to say that the Second protects everything else, but it's kind of true, because the force of technology is kind of the thing that, like, God made man and Samuel Colt made them equal type shit.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
like it's true about the Second Amendment, or at least until they make a thing that's more readily available and deadly than firearms. It's kind of just like, what is government's business in saying what I need and don't need? I understand if you're a killer, you've been convicted, but it's not your job to say what I need.
I mean, does anyone really need a space laser, though? I mean, do you really need a satellite that shoots lasers? I mean, do you need that?
It's all ass backwards.
Understand that all of that will always be done under the guise of trying to protect the citizenry from,
of course,
other citizenry. Right?
That's what, any kind of power grab is always, no one's like, hey, just give me more power just because. Like, here, I'm going to give you some kind of valid reason as to why I should have more power.
All right, I'm gonna interject a question to the audience, because I see Seawall just walked into the chat room, so I hope he's still in there. So his first post shall not be infringed. So my question to you, Seawall, that I've asked both of these gentlemen: should we do away with background checks completely? That is the answer that determines how you truly see the Second Amendment, in my opinion. John, what I was going to say earlier when you were talking about laws for manufacturing and stuff, yes, it is true that there have been plenty of resolutions put in from the manufacturing standpoint. A lot of it deals with the import/export of guns, what we're allowed to send over to other places, or what we want to let go to other countries, and what we want to bring in, what we're allowing to come in. A lot of it is to deal with the import-export. He says guns shall not be in the fridge. Oh, that's Stephen Ignoramus.
It was Stephen. Yeah, that was good.
Okay, so a background check for criminality only. But that means everybody has to have a background check to determine who is a criminal and who's not. And the background check is a form of infringement. So that, again, says to me that it nullifies any stance that anybody should be taking on the Second Amendment. But that's just my opinion. Nobody's trying to take your guns away.
Culturally enforced.
In fact,
all this stuff would make
you have two organizations that fight regularly to make sure your guns are not going to be taken away. NRA and Republicans. Between those two entities, I don't see guns going anywhere.
Republicans aren't necessarily pro-gun. Don't get me wrong, they run on platforms.
War,
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Now, they will be less pro.
So are Democrats, to be fair. They're both pro-war. I mean,
well, not as much, but
that's
close.
one of the only things they've ever agreed on is war.
Now, Republicans will probably be less pro-gun. For some reason, they really piss off the citizenry, and they'll be like, "Okay, we need to remove guns because they're going to revolt. We need to get."
They talk about being pro-gun, but they're not.
I mean, the main legitimate. I remember this argument from when I was younger, and this was a very legitimate argument to a certain extent. And it was talking about It was about registering weapons.
No, that's an awful idea.
Right. Well, serial numbers are registration.
Yeah, in a
Right.
way.
So you know who's got what guns, right? Where they should
Yeah,
be.
but there's no national database of
They say.
guns.
They say.
Yeah, that we know of.
I mean, excuse me, but a UPC? Tell me what's tied to a UPC. Everything about a product. And for a gun, it would include that serial number.
Yeah.
So the information is there. Now, the argument back in the day, long ago, was that registering firearms was how the government was going to make sure that if something happened in this country, they would be able to specifically target those households and eradicate any kind of conflict with the citizenry should we reach a point where government seemed to be abusive, tyrannical, whatever. That was an argument that was made back then, and I was like, I could kind of see that. If
that's why we don't want.
Then they'll SWAT team houses all over the country to try and get a hold of guns, so the citizenry can't really stand up and revolt.
God, that would be so bloody.
Right?
Holy shit. Yeah, that would be absolutely horrible.
I just don't like government and household in the same sentence.
Yeah. Unless it's government getting out of my household.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I get that. I understand that mentality, that libertarian slant. But again, then you turn around and say background checks are okay. It's like I don't want government.
No, again, it's a compromise. It's not saying I want this. It's a compromise.
Not that I want it. Yeah, exactly what John's saying. Yeah.
And it goes back to my motto: the cost of freedom is the sacrifice of liberty. You must sacrifice some
you're
liberties.
encouraging me to go like full ANCAP at the moment, being like,
I'm there.
No compromises. That's it. Give me my McNuke. I want my McNuke.
You want the freedom to own a gun. You have to sacrifice a little bit of liberty to get it. And
no, I need to have responsibility, and that is different. Responsibility is different than sacrificing liberty.
Well, you have to sacrifice 3 days for a waiting period. You don't have the liberty to just walk in and grab a gun and go. You have to go in. You have to sacrifice a little bit of your liberty. You have to. That's sacrificing liberty, right? Am I wrong? I mean, I don't see how it.
I think you have different definitions. Because remember, I've told you what the definition of freedom is.
I understand what the definition of freedom is, and I understand
that
it doesn't exist.
Losing freedom doesn't give you liberty, or vice versa. You don't get more freedom by sacrificing liberty.
Sure you do. You keep your freedom. You keep the freedom to own a gun as long as you sacrifice a little bit of your liberty to get it in your hands.
They're not our slave owners, man.
I'm not saying that that's how government should work. I'm saying that's the reality. We live in a society where you must sacrifice some liberties to continue to live in a free country. I mean, you'll tell somebody all day long.
We notice you see well.
You live in a free country, right? Now, see, 1 day no waiting period. Is that 1 day no waiting period?
It says I day, but I assume it's one. I don't know.
But see, that's the problem. You can't. Can we expect that the FBI could do instantaneous background checks? Are we at that point?
No, of course not, because they're bureaucracy, and bureaucracy is always inefficient.
Right. It takes time because of so many people buying guns. There's I want to say it was 2017, 2008, there were over 8 million applications for guns. So you total that up on a number of for days, how much manpower does that take to get that many done on a daily basis?
Steve-O's saying no, I say no waiting period.
Yeah, so no waiting period for guns, but still a background check.
I mean, you're pushing me more towards that. Towards no waiting period, no background check.
But you can't have
because you want me to compromise further and further.
No, I'm not asking you to compromise.
I'm going to have to move back through this line,
John,
this side of the line even further.
You've already compromised as much as our government needs you to. For now.
No further.
For now.
No further. This far and no farther.
Again, he's coming after your right to free speech and freedom of press before he comes after your guns. Watch. He's building his case for removing freedom of press. He's been doing it
Oh
since
my
day one.
God.
Fake news. What do you, John? You sit and tell me that this orange man has these
I will.
deep Uber
I will tell you
7-level
that he
plans
doesn't.
and like this unique strategy, this overwhelmingly crazy strategy
No,
for doing
it's
this
not.
and doing for that.
No,
But him trying to defuse every bit of news out there is
No,
not a
that's not what's
coordinated
happening.
plan to eventually try and get freedom of the press killed or
No,
make it
when I talk about like,
prosecutable.
the 4D chess thing is a meme, first of all. And so, no, I think he's human. I think he's good at talking to individual people. I don't think he's a good orator. I don't think he's, especially speaking off the cuff, I don't think he's that great. But I also don't think he's got some like master plan to become dictator.
I know you
I
don't.
really don't. I don't think he's capable of it.
So.
I don't think he's capable of planning like that.
But there's even people around him that are like, we don't know that he's going to give up in 2020 if he's.
Well, that's
not
because he's
elected.
had this air of unpredictability,
Right.
and that's been his biggest advantage.
Right. Do you trust it? I don't.
Do I trust
now,
it?
see,
His air of unpredictability. It's worked out for him so far.
So Sewell says a basic background check takes like 10 minutes. Yes, if you're doing a 7-year background check, it takes like 10 minutes. But the background check that they're doing is the full-blown background check that you would have run through the FBI were you to get a high-level government position. These are not your standard quick background checks that companies do
it
all
really
the time
should just
for
be
low-level employees. This is the lifetime background check that they're doing. They're looking into your entire past. They're even, the FBI is able to see expunged records. These kind of things, because those never go away,
Yeah,
even
that's
though
way
they're
too much.
expunged, right?
Yeah, that's way too much.
But he says that you say that's overkill, but I disagree. I mean, what if you were convicted for a felony 30 years ago, but the background check only covers 7? So you're okay to own a gun?
Well, no, you still have it on your record, though. You can just check your criminal record, and it'll say, "Oh, look, he got arrested."
The 7-year background check, the 7 or 10-year background check, only looks
Yeah,
to see if you've
no,
been
you
convicted
still
of a
have-
crime in those times.
No, you would still have
You know how I know?
felony on your record.
You want to know how I know?
Sure.
Because I've had multiple background checks done for jobs, and nobody has ever known that I had 2 felony convictions when I was younger. And I didn't tell them, and I still had background checks done, and they didn't show on the background checks.
For that, yeah. I mean,
If it didn't
not
happen
for
in
police.
the time frame they're looking for, it doesn't come up on the background check. What comes up on the background check is the full, extensive background check that looks at everything in your record. The short ones don't do it, and I found this out by
so for
trial and
criminality,
error.
that's fine. Or just looking at your criminal record, that's fine. We don't need to,
Well,
do everything else. Looking at your social media or
Right. Well,
what your grades were like in school. We don't need to know all that.
No, it's not looking at your grades in school. It's just
I
checking to see
was
if you've been
being
in-
facetious, yeah.
But I can tell you right now that felonies don't come up on the short-term background checks. Or there are multiple jobs I would have never gotten because I have never put on an application that I had any felony arrest. And
You didn't check the box.
And I've always gotten the jobs.
Mm.
So as long as you don't say it, and it hasn't happened in that time frame, apparently it doesn't come up, and they don't have an issue with it. Now,
Maybe it did come
if
up.
it's
If
if it changed recently in the last decade, I'll say I'm wrong. But
I honestly
throughout
don't
my
know, yeah,
life,
it
because
has.
this happened when I was like 20 years old, 2 felony arrests, and sad to say, felony arrests that prevent me from owning a firearm. I don't know why, because it wasn't a violent crime, and I don't know why it classifies as a crime that would remove your right to own a firearm, but nobody's ever said anything about it. It's never come up as an issue. Right? I have been tempted to go in and attempt to get a gun and see if I see if I'm able to get a gun, because then we would understand just how shitty the background check system is. To see how many felons are actually getting guns that shouldn't be. But
let's get out of here though. It's been over.
Oh, has it?
It's way over.
Oh, 9 minutes. That's not way.
That's way over.
It's not even a decade.
This is pretty interesting, though. Yeah,
I
Yeah.
love this at this time.
Well,
because
that's why I always have to stop it, because it's going to go on forever and ever.
I'm
And
excited for this debate with you and J. Edgar. Yeah.
that's another reason why I don't want to get too far into it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be to save it for that.
I have to say this. I've seen some eye-opening facts in looking into it from the FBI standpoint, looking at reports from the FBI, because I was severely surprised. Granted, I take this stance that the sky is not falling, but I didn't realize how far up it is and how long it would actually take it to fall based off the numbers of guns.
I guess we should let J. Edgar know he better do his homework.
Well, I'm sure he will.
Because you are.
He's kind of got that homework look. Hey, but, when it's all said and done, go get your guns, but don't kill anybody. That's really all we want, right? Get your guns, don't kill anybody unless they try and shoot you first. And if they tell you to kneel in a classroom, counter.
They're gonna shoot you. They're gonna shoot you with airsoft pellets. Yeah.
Remember Alice?
Right.
Or did they call her the Red Queen? Wasn't that what they called her? Wasn't that am I referencing the right movie?
Isn't that that's Alice in Wonderland, isn't it?
No, I was talking about Alice from what's the zombie movie with the chick, the hot chick, and they made the video games and the big zombie-looking guy with the big hammer, mace. All the video games that they made of it.
I don't know what this is. No.
Talking about House of the Dead, or
no.
Oh yeah, what is that?
Umbrella, the Umbrella
Resident Evil.
Corporation.
Resident Evil.
Right.
Resident Evil.
There it
Yeah.
is, Resident Evil.
Yeah.
It was.
That's the one.
Yeah, it's.
That's the one I was thinking of too, and I said House of the Dead instead, which was a great game as well. But
I think Alice was the girl's name. The red that was running computers. You've seen Resident Evil.
Yeah, like a long time ago.
Like when the guy got sliced up in the tube. But anyway.
Sure.
That was some crazy shit. But anyway. So if somebody comes at you with a gun, fight back, save our kids, do the right things, and then lock it up in a safe so you can't get access to it should somebody break through your door. And you'll just say, go ahead and kill me. And by the way, there's a gun in my safe.
Yeah. You got the magazine in the garage, the safe is in the bedroom. You got to run around and assemble it.
Give us a little click on the like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already.
Right.
We're going to get the hell out of here. Before we go, hey, Steven, you do some stuff, right? So tell us, where can we see you? Where can we find you? Got anything interesting coming up? How's the wife and kids?
Well, I mean, I do a almost daily stream called the Daily Ignoramus, where I do kind of history, learning, and news, stuff like that. And then I'm starting to do music streams where I loop music and stuff like that with a keytar. Got the thing right behind me somewhere. But yeah, you can just check out my channel, Steven Ignoramus, on a bunch of platforms, and Ignoramus Steve on Twitter. Hit me up.
And I do recommend the music streams, also your other streams, but definitely your music streams are a lot of fun.
Well,
so
are these those like those 10 hours of the same thing looped over and over again?
No,
like you like to do with the Mario theme music?
No, I do all kinds of shit. I like DJ with my feet a little bit, and I just mess with technology and play guitar, do some covers. I get a lot of copyright claims.
You should try.
Yeah, guys, he's seriously talented, though. Really, it's pretty awesome.
You should do one where you DJ
recommend it.
with your guns.
That's not going to happen. Yeah. I don't want any.
Put a positive spin on gun ownership.
Yo, what up, NSA?
You see, positive spin. All right.
Jesus.
Hey, Steven. Thanks for dropping by. It was fun talking to you.
Sure.
I really enjoy talking to you when you're on the show. John, we will be back around on Monday. We got our general shooting the shit episode, and then we'll be back the following Friday. So until then, 9 o'clock on Monday, we will wait. He still needs to do Adam Worski song. The chat.
Yeah, that's for Steven. Yeah,
I know. AOC wall. He
did chocolate salty balls for me. That was pretty awesome.
Nice.
Oh baby.
John
you
likes
burned my balls. Yeah.
You like any salty balls.
It's
and
true.
on that note, we're going to get the hell out of here. Steven, you have a good night. John, you have a good night. Folks, have yourselves a great night, and keep it safe out there. We'll talk to you soon. John, where can they find us?
You can find us on Twitter at @TheGenGapP. You can find us on Discord in the link below.
And you'll also find a link couple of links to Steve
Also,
and Ignoramus down
Steven's
below as well. So click those links and have some fun. We'll talk to you soon, folks. Have a good night.
Yep, see you guys.
Later.